ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lorette Nickel.
So sweet, thank you. Hi everyone, hello, how's it going? I know we're starting to wrap up our first day here at AIMExpo, and I hope it's been very successful for you. I have seen so many old friends, and my heart is just full. It's been so much fun. We also had our board members lunch and learn and got to know 10 of our board members. So really great day. Of course, this continues going over towards tomorrow and Friday, but we have a really important panel coming up right now that I'm really excited about and hope that you are as well. So if you can hear the sound of my voice, we're of course on the disruptive thinking stage. Now this is exactly that. We want to challenge traditional ways of thinking, and of course we want to continue to grow this industry. So if you would love to come over and have a seat and hang out with us, what we are doing right now is competitors and community living together on Main Street. So for me, this is an example of a rising tide lifts all ships. And our industry has some of the fiercest competition imaginable, on the track, in the dirt, and of course, in business. In Denver, Colorado, the competition is housed on one block, and this is Octane Alley. It's where Erico Motorsports, a multi-line franchise dealer with an incredible showroom, carrying a wide range of gear and accessories, is found, and where RevZilla, an online motorcycle gear and accessories retailer, has a brick-and-mortar storefront. It's also where motorcycle gear and apparel manufacturer REV'IT has opened its flagship and only store in the US. These three brands recognize that the opportunity to create a community far outweighed any pitfalls that may have come with having your competitor as your neighbor. These panelists will explain what it means to complement the competition and how it ultimately helps not just your business grow, but our entire industry. They're also going to discuss the pitfalls and how to avoid and overcome them. Be inspired to look at your competition differently and create a better experience, an environment that will deliver new, loyal customers to your doorstep. I'm happy to introduce these gentlemen ingrained in this bright community, beginning with Paolo, president of REV'IT. Come on over. I'm going to have him say his last name because it's going to sound a lot better coming from him than me. Sterling Holloway, general sales manager, Erico Motorsports. And of course, Stevan Popovich, wherever you want to sit, from Komodo, America's largest power sports aftermarket retailer. Hello, gentlemen. Hi. Come grab a seat. Come hang out with me. First of all, thank you so much for you three being here. Really appreciate it. Sterling, I'd love to start with you. Yeah. And I touched upon it in the introduction, but for people that aren't familiar with how this setup works, could you give us a few details?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, we have a store in Denver, Colorado. We're a European motorcycle dealership, so have brands like Ducati, Triumph, Moto Guzzi, Vespa. Our location is, we're just north of downtown Denver, north of Coors Field by a few blocks, in what's called the River North District. And what the River North District is basically an old warehouse district that was converted to, it's been converted to restaurants and bars and shops and all kinds of great things. But what makes our block kind of different is that we have our dealership on one part of the block, and then just next door we have RevZilla, one of the first brick-and-mortar stores they opened up, and then just across the street from that we have REV'IT, who has one of their first stores in Denver. So it's just three different motorcycle shops that are all doing something a little bit different. There is some crossover, but the idea behind it is that instead of being competitors, we're kind of complementing each other. The idea is getting new and different energy to each of our stores, and we do that by just working together. Plain and simple.
And you guys could all be seen as competitors, but Paolo, how did this idea come together? Who was involved in discussing this? Was this on a bar napkin, this idea? And
it was my idea.
Love it.
No, that would be a lie. No, I think it came quite organically together. I know that organically is a term that is sometimes not well used, but I think it's started, I think, a long time ago with John's vision of Erico actually to create a sort of like a good community around where Erico was, and it is right now, on Walnut Street. And I think was the first step overall. After that, I think the RevZillians roll in, and that, of course, helped to create quite a good of attraction, and in the area, of course. And then we came as the last one, and our function was just more like to try to bring methodically everybody together to create a bunch of events. And so I know that there were some events already happening before, and we said, okay, we need to create at least like one good event together every couple of months. So we started to sit down and meet, and that's how it went.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to convince people to do this idea?
No, as I said,
No.
I think it was already in the DNA of the situation a little bit because of John's vision overall. And I think it was pretty interesting, of course, like, to put the customer in the center of attention, all together. So that's why we started to meet together.
I think that's so cool. And Steven, for some, they can really look at this as you three are competitors against each other, but have you seen it as a symbiotic relationship, and who benefits?
Well, for us, as seen as probably the biggest competitor to dealerships with all of our retail locations, John at Erico was, we saw the quality of the dealership that they ran, and they had a building next to it that we took advantage, approached John and said, hey, we'd love to take this over, put a RevZilla store here. But for us, I'm sure we all lose a little bit of sales, between the businesses. They might see a Climb jacket at our store and go across the street and buy a REV'IT jacket, or buy a Triumph OEM branded something at the Erico dealership, as opposed to a third-party brand that we sell. But we're in the business of trying to create more riders, so we don't really care where they shop, as long as they get into riding motorcycles. So for us, it just became an opportunity to develop a community and a relationship with a dealership where we don't excel. We don't sell motorcycles at Cycle Gear in our stores or in our RevZilla stores. So to be able to kind of drive traffic to get people excited about the community and riding motorcycles, and as we've seen with the events that we do, a lot of folks show up. They want to be part of the community, and I think anything the industry can do to reinforce how riders feel that riding is part of their core identity is great for the sport, and in turn, I think is great for all three businesses that are within 60 feet of one another.
Yeah. That's so cool. And Paolo, for the people that are resistant to the idea, what would you tell them to change their mind?
Yeah, as I was hinting a little bit before, I think it's important to, in my opinion, that's why, again, we're doing this, is to put the customer in the central vision of what we're trying to create. Because, of course, all these three entities are for profit. They're not a no-profit organization. So at the end, we need to grow. We need to sell, but we need to do it, I think, in a smart way. And the smart way is basically to create a hub, create a community where people can come and easily get into motorcycle or feel confident about, buying a motorcycle, accessories, or something, again, more specifically with our brand, REV'IT. But so I think it's the whole idea is to start with should be okay. Let's put the customer in the center, and let's figure out how we do this. Let's figure out how we can bring more people to each of our location. And I think if that's the mentality, I think lots of barriers can go down.
Yeah. And Sterling, to Paolo's point, putting a customer in the center, if you build that relationship with them, it can really lead to an engaged and loyal community, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all here, we know how important relationships with customers, how important that relationship is. I think some of the time we forget that relationship is going to be the foundation that kind of carries us forward from here on out. The industry is changing pretty rapidly. The one thing that won't change is like when the customer appreciates how much time and how much effort and how much you just appreciate them, having them, in your world or in our world and being a part of it, it'll show and it'll continue to grow. And the thing is that will spread as well. Like that sense of community starts with one person and then it just goes 1, 2, 3 and just multiplies exponentially. So again, it feels pretty basic or pretty stereotypical to say like, relationship is the first thing, the most important thing, but it's forgotten. I've seen it at my store, different stores, not necessarily even the motorcycle industry, everywhere where you go to spend money. I think that it's easy to just look at someone and see dollar signs and not see a person. So remembering that person has family, has friends, and then if you treat them correctly and you show them a part of your community and bring them into your community and show them how amazing it can be, the sky's the limit, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that point there is community and trying to create that. And, sometimes that community can be new or it can be based in tradition. And Steven, sometimes the actions of dealers, like what are the dealers doing right now that will affect the business and the industry in the next 20 years?
Well, I think the most positive thing that dealers are doing and can do is make the experience for new riders especially as easy and welcoming as possible. On the online side of the business for RevZilla, we look at metrics that dealerships don't. We look at lifetime value and how long somebody's going to shop with us over the span of their life. And when I started at RevZilla before taking over Cycle Gear, somebody called in and said, I just bought a Ninja 250 in 2012. We would celebrate with excitement because that person's going to get a 500 or a 600. They're going to be a core motorcyclist for life. So I think it's important, the dealerships that we want to partner with, and Erico is a great example of that, is we know when somebody goes in, they're going to be serviced, they're going to have a great experience, and they're going to be a customer for life. And I think the industry and dealerships need to could probably do in some cases a better job of reinforcing the community and the lifetime opportunity of people being in the industry. We're no different than cycling, we're no different than skiing, we're no different than any other outdoor specialty retail business. The core difference that I see is that dealerships have the hurdles of running a dealership and managing their dealer inventory as opposed to not being able to over-index in retailing like Cabela's or Dick's Sporting Goods or things of that nature. So I think anything to keep them in, and the relationship and partnership that we have with Erico and Paolo across the street with REV'IT. Paolo and REV'IT have been a partner and a #1 brand for RevZilla and Cycle Gear for over a decade. And it just reinforces that bond with us. I mean, a lot of folks here that I've seen today are friends that I've had in this industry running brands for the past, 15 years. And, they see the value in it. And I think if we can connect the enthusiasm for the new rider and live in a symbiotic way where we can, share that experience and enthusiasm would keep them moving forward in a positive way. So,
yeah, and I think sharing that enthusiasm too, we want to keep doing that and keeping our industry and motorsports healthy. We need a steady stream of customers to come in. So, Sterling, what are some of the steps that Erico has done to break down entry?
That's actually a really good question. I'm sure that a lot of people here would like to know how do we keep this stream of customers consistent and constant. And we've done is we've kind of gone back to the basics and thought about how do you prevent people from being intimidated to coming into the industry that can be, and I don't want to use the word scary, but can be a hurdle to jump into. And I think for us it starts with this community events. For example, the 3 stores, REV'IT, RevZilla, we're actually in Erico. We actually have events, collaborative events, a few times a month. We even have one happening in about 3 weeks. And it's going to be an event that's just going to be basically just come and hang out, look at motorcycles, check out gear, listen to music, and just enjoy yourself. There's no, you have to spend money. There's no, you don't have to have any experience with motorcycles at all. You just have to be interested in hanging out with people and listening to music. Partnering with riding schools is a pretty old school idea as well, or a pretty simple idea, but that's been a big part of it. And then it sounds silly too, but just social media advertising in not the standard places you normally advertise. So what we've kind of been doing is things like even like sporting events, we'll shoot advertisements out, and things like we'll do Rockies games and Avalanche game, which are the professional teams. But it's really just making sure that everybody has the opportunity to see that motorcycles are awesome. They're not scary. They're one of the best things on the planet. And then making sure to reinforce that like it's an easy entry to get into. It's an easy thing to get into. You don't have to start big. You can just start small. Simple as that.
We know they're awesome. We are totally obsessed, and we feel like we're preaching to the choir, right? And we just need more people to understand our passion and to bring them in. And to Sterling's point, Paolo and Steven, is there anything else that you guys have additionally done to mitigate any barriers to new riders coming in?
Well, for us, I mean, safety is a big component of riding a motorcycle. So we went on a whole campaign last year to promote the safety of airbags, entry to the sport. We've partnered with the MIC to try to support the Ride With Us campaign to get people on motorcycles for the first time. I think anything that we can do from a content standpoint, from when people come into the store, to understand what they're getting into and the steps they need to take. And I think back to the dealership question earlier, it's important that, to Sterling, what Sterling just said, I mean, they're cool. I mean, motorcycles are cool, but it's also intimidating. And I think anything you could do to create excitement around that and ease people in, promote the safety, promote safe riding. I mean, we did the technology of airbags and wearing a helmet. People have the right to choose what they want to do. However, for people that may be intimidated, understanding that you can be safe, taking classes, taking further education, learning to follow the rules of the road. I live in Colorado. Well, we all live in Colorado. And people come to visit because they want to ride in the mountains, but they don't know how to ride. They live in a flat state with not many turns. And I think anything we can do to kind of promote that safety and have these events where people can come in and touch a motorcycle and get the thrill of turning a throttle or putting on a helmet makes for more riders. And that's what the industry needs. I think everyone here from the OEMs down, the number one question is how do we continue to grow an industry that's been relatively stagnant over the past few years? And you're only going to do that if you partner with dealerships, partners with, you're probably not going to want to partner with Cycle Gear. Anybody down there is listening to me because you see me as competition, but at the same time, we're not. We're looking to grow the sport, invest in the community, and promote safer riding practices for everybody.
And Paolo, along those lines, how do we continue to encourage riders to stay engaged with the community?
Yeah, I mean, a lot has been said. I think the first step is to attract, of course, more people and engage them as much as possible. Make it fun. I mean, is what actually we need to do in a relaxed atmosphere. I mean, sometimes we forget about this, but because we are all busy, but daily grinding and day-to-day work and blah, blah, blah. But I think overall, this segment and this industry that we work in, at the end is fun. It's charismatic, there's lots of cool stuff, and we need to bring them back to surface in order to engage better, also with riders, new riders, old riders, doesn't matter. We need to continue to create a fun moment. That's why I think all together we want to consistently organize a bunch of events and things, for people to get together. As Sterling and Steven said, just more like in a relaxed atmosphere. And then again, it's a matter of following the customer along the journey and figure out what else we need. Of course, there is lots of more technicality also in designing the store for being actually more welcoming and so on. But I think that was our pretty basic step. Yeah.
And Steven, moving forward with all of those options, there's a lifetime value of a customer, isn't there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, on the online side, I mean, we're fortunate that we have 4 businesses under our umbrella and customers move between them. It's a unique situation in this industry, but they don't leave. They have a great experience, and they start with a entry-level bike and an entry-level helmet, and they come back. And I mean, you can quantify just the years they stay in it. I said it earlier, but it's part of people's core identity. And hey, what's up, man? We have, sorry, I know
great.
Chris. I think it's important to us, and I think a note that I wanted to say related to lifetime value in dealerships and OEMs is we have bike nights every Tuesday for half the year in our stores. We drive a ton of traffic to our stores as we have 170 currently. Just for our bike nights, we have 500,000 people show up once a month from March to October. 500,000 people go through our bike nights to be part of the community all across the country. You know, when we talk about lifetime value, yeah, I want to sell them another helmet. Yeah, I want Sterling to sell them another motorcycle to keep people in it. But they just want to be part of something, and we're fortunate to be able to have the platform to keep people in that cycle, and as our chief digital officer says, entangle the customer into the space. And they come back because they might get a new helmet they want to show off at a bike night. They might want to come back because they got a new, you know, brake levers, fancy brake levers or exhaust for their bike, and that keeps them in. And I think the hardest part is with, you know, the discussions around the aging consumer in the space, especially in the V-twin space. Anything you can do to double down and spend, I mean, we spend, you know, a couple $100,000 to support these events every month because we want to keep them back. And literally we have customers. I started RevZilla in April of 2011. I mean, there's still customers that I see and talk to and get emails from that have been shopping with us for over a decade, probably spending collectively $20,000, $30,000 over their life. So I think for us, it's important to, you know, harness that value, whether it's starting with Ride With Us and getting someone in at an entry level where they feel comfortable, but then keeping them in that cycle. And that doesn't come if you don't reinvest in your customers. As Erico did, they saw the opportunity to partner with us, and then with Paolo moving in, I think, again, it just keeps people excited because it is cool, and it's a key initiative for our businesses to keep the generating lifetime investment by the consumer.
Yeah, and listening to you talk about the bike nights, what it's kind of reminding me of is adult show and tell. Because here we have these riders that are able to come in and show their new helmet or show their new part on the bike or just show off the bike in general, because sometimes adults, we don't get the opportunity to be prideful in something that we own. So that's really incredible. I love that. And Sterling, to close, as the industry continues to evolve, what are some of the trends that you're currently seeing that you think will shape the future of customer experience?
It boils down to everything being digital nowadays for the most part. Trying to bring it back to being analog would be a big part of it, but things like everybody sees, you know, in dealerships we say there's 30, 40 touches before they actually come into the store, and what that means is what they see online through friends, whatever is suggested, and it's going to be kind of what's going to change, or what's going to continue changing, is that digital space is going to continue to grow, and so being able to capture those people and get them to actually, you know, walk into a store and give you their time, and then eventually give you their money, right? People here are probably tired of hearing the word AI, but like AI is taking over, and it's going to be a huge driver for sales. It already is, but I think that it's going to grow. I've used the word exponential a few times, but we're already seeing that it's been beneficial, and just even not just responding to customers, but predicting on what their next step's going to be, and then jumping ahead of them, so that way you kind of catch them in the right space. I mean, the thing is, I wish I knew, what trends we're gonna, you know, what the future is gonna look like for bike sales. But I think it's gonna boil down to a big part of what we're doing here, which is like working together. And that might sound cheesy, but the thing is, like, you know, 3 heads are stronger than one. And I think with the whole industry, it's like there's going to be certain moments where you have to realize that working with a store that maybe you wouldn't consider working with before is going to be beneficial for both you guys. we're fighting for, the community is, motorcycle community is pretty large, and I hope that it'll continue to grow. But the thing is, we are going to have to fight pretty hard to get more and more people into it. From what I'm seeing, being a little bit younger, running my store, and seeing like a younger customer basis, I'm kind of noticing that it's a hard way to put it, but basically, younger kids, people in their teens and 20s, aren't as interested in cars or motorcycles and bikes to say they were 20 years ago. And it's like, what do we do? How do we get those people in? And it's by showing them, like I mentioned in the beginning, that like they are one of the coolest things on the planet, and making sure that they realize that as soon as humanly possible is going to be a big part of it. And by doing that, or the way to do that is going to be obviously digitally, and then using AI is going to be, I think, a driving force for the industry as a whole. We were resistant to it right away, but it seems to be helping out. And then also just making sure that you don't forget that all those new people coming in, we still have a massive pool of people that have been in the industry for a long time, and we talk about a lifetime customer, and making sure that we don't forget about that customer that's been in for 30, 40 years while we're getting those new people in at the same time is going to be super important. So the future is going to be, it's going to be different, but I think just being open to change is what's going to make us successful.
Amazingly put. Is there anything that you gentlemen want to add? Paolo, anything?
Maybe the last component that is important when we talk about, how do we make this happening and so on. It's really, it comes down, we can talk about different things, but it comes down actually to the people, and believing from the top to the bottom. Because I think what is important is that at the store level, in each store, I think there is a good collaboration between a path manager or GM and so on. So, and there is also sort of a complicity level, let's do this, let's have fun and so on. So, of course, again, we can use different tools, but people at the end are the one that makes the difference. So in the customer experience, in the customer journey, and within the collaboration that needs to happen as well. Yeah.
Steven, your closing thoughts?
I am not your enemy. I think everyone thinks we're your enemy at Cycle Gear and RevZilla. We're not. We want people to ride motorcycles. The owner of Iron Pony, Chris Jones, and I have known each other for over a decade and have great partnership and relationship. And I think, it's, we're all in the business of business, and I think that's important. But I think as soon as the industry lose sight of the core principle of creating new ridership and keeping people invested in the sport, then we're just misguided. And it might sound easy or might think it sounds easy for me sitting here saying that just due to the breadth of our business, but we're not successful if we don't sell motorcycles. So the industry doesn't grow and the industry doesn't promote and encourage new ridership and make people feel welcome, then it's on us. So whether or not you like us or not, we are in the same business that you are, and I think it's important to get the message that we are in the business of creating new riders and supporting riders and keeping them in the business. It's frustrating at times that the conversations don't always lead to thinking forward and how we grow just due to the nature of our business, but that's the business we're in, and we're not your enemy. So if anyone ever wants to have some fun like we've had with Erico and REV'IT, we're always excited to engage and see what the opportunities are. And the businesses that have been positive and looking forward with us, we've had incredibly successful relationships with, and it's been, we've seen tremendous growth on all sides.
Amazing. Sterling, anything else to add?
No, I think that's basically it.
Yeah.
I just want to add on to what Steven was saying, is that we're just a small shop, and he probably won't like me using the word, but Cycle Gear RevZilla is a Goliath compared to us. But we've seen some massive benefit by having them next door. It's like they've brought in just a whole new energy into like our block. It's been pretty astonishing. Like we mentioned early on, there is some crossover. We're going to lose certain business in certain aspects, but then we're also gaining a lot more just ridership, and like our community was a good size before they moved in, but now it's a heck of a lot bigger that they're next door to us, and so I'm a huge fan of them, and I feel pretty lucky that I get to be partnered with these two guys. So yeah.
I love that. Well, this has been so enlightening, and we have more panels that are coming up. Tomorrow we have the big boards where you can see what the schedules are, so please take a look at that. But Steven, Sterling, and Paolo, thank you so very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for it.
Thanks, gentlemen.